Happy Patch Tuesday, everybody. We made it to June. And man, this one is a doozy of a Patch Tuesday, to say the least. There are some very, very interesting phones
So good.
the patch notes that we've been reading today on this beautiful June Tuesday. To think that it's already June is crazy, and it is just a kind of time machine in this industry. So yeah. Welcome. Thank you all for your continued support of our podcasts. If you're not aware, we have many other podcasts that we produce here at Automox. There is the CISO IT podcast led by Jason, and it is a great addition to your monthly listen. If you are interested, please go check it out. And we have some other product and IT related podcasts as well. So they are well worth the listen if you have the time. So thanks again for your continued support. And yeah, we look forward to you spending a little bit of time today with us as we ramble through these patch notes like we typically do. And the first one that we saw that's really got us laughing, honestly, is CVE 2024 30078, which is a Windows Wi-Fi driver remote
RCE.
code execution vulnerability.
Oh, so good.
It reads, right? It reads, an unauthenticated attacker could send a malicious networking packet to an adjacent system that is employing a Wi-Fi networking adapter, which could enable remote code execution. Now, this to me feels like some late 90s security if I have ever seen it. And man, this is just not one of those like shaking your head type vulnerabilities.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I would have definitely had some fun with this in my younger days. It's only a CVSS of 8.8, but that's because you have to have, close access. And I was happy to see it's at least not publicly disclosed or publicly, no known exploitation in the wild. But wow, just wildly damaging. And depending on the particulars of how the exploitation path looks, this could be something where, you could really snap up a lot of systems. I mean, bugs of this nature, while rare, are very dangerous, and they're dangerous because the danger comes from a different access to which people are used to. And what I mean by that is, this isn't great for exploiting somebody across the internet, and I am in Russia and I want to exploit a bunch of systems inside the United States. This is not the bug for you. But, if you're looking to, slap the Wi-Fi magnetic antenna on the roof of your Nissan Sentra and go like cruising around through the burbs and build you a little botnet, this thing's got your back, and it can, a bug of this nature. I mean, this could get corporate machines that are sitting there, and if you have people who are working from home, I mean, this is why I hardwire in my corporate machine and disable the Wi-Fi. That I live in fear of bugs like this from my younger days. But you also get lots of personal machines, and God, this would be a fun one for Black Hat and DEF CON this year. As a matter of fact, I'm sure there are people who are probably disappointed that this didn't come out after DEF CON, because this would have been a blast there, and probably still will be, because yeah, right, yeah, Henry, right, like it's June, and that's not a lot of time to the beginning of August.
Yeah, that reminds me of last year at DEF CON, where as we were walking around the conference, a few of us started getting spammed with Hey, do you want to connect to this Apple TV? It was over and over and over. And at first we were like, is there just is there an Apple TV around, or what is going on here? And one of our cohorts actually accidentally clicked like yes because it was just spamming and spamming and he was going to try to go to his messages. Well, it popped up on the bottom there. He hit continue. Nothing really happened, but then he was like, I think I'm going to wipe my phone just to be safe. Um, and we later found out there was a researcher that posted on Twitter that uh, they were just walking around with this Raspberry Pi, and it was just spamming BLE packets with this to every single iPhone. And I think some of the ramifications were that if you accepted, it would send some iCloud tokens or something because you need those to connect to devices on the network. So um, the possibilities seem sort of endless for this one too, in like a physical setting.
And that individual will never go to DEF CON again with Bluetooth enabled.
Yep.
But yeah,
Well,
I'm
the
go ahead.
scary part about that was even if it was on airplane mode, it would still spam. So like you would have to go physically turn off Bluetooth because
Yep.
airplane mode didn't technically turn off Bluetooth. So that
Right.
was another thing they found out.
I mean, this one is just absolutely wild. I'm kind of thinking of like war driving, but instead of looking for just unsecured networks, you're just trying to get an RCE. I mean, I'm just picturing someone sitting in like a white van outside of an office, just spamming, praying that they get some kind of RCE. So this is
Yeah.
definitely one for the books.
Yeah. Well, and close access bugs like this, because you have full remote access, far side of the internet. You have physical access. I can touch the machine. I can plug something in, and then you have close access, which is I'm within pretty standard RF range of my target. And close access bugs are rare, especially one that'll give you RCE on the victim system. But man, are they're wildly valuable. And this takes me back to my cyber command days where we'd be doing an exercise or something, and some very serious Air Force guy would come in, lay down a target package, and be like, okay, here's a simulated like building in Russia or wherever, and like, like, what are you guys gonna do to this building? Like, how are you gonna cyber it? And look at him like, okay, buddy, that's not how any of this works, because I have no, like, you've given me map coordinates on a grid, but like, just because you know where the building is, or we could get close to the building, doesn't give me any ability to access their networks, right? I need to find where they are on the internet. I need to characterize their IP space. I need to see what options I have to get in there, because that's how the majority of exploitation works. But with a bug like this, something like that is in the realm of feasible, where you could, fly by or drive by or go by in a boat from a distance with an antenna that's a very expensive version of a Pringles can, purchased by Uncle Sam, and point at the building and actually exploit into that place, because that place controls the thing that you're interested in, or whatever. Uh, you know, these these sorts of bugs are not science fiction; they're just rare, but that's what makes them so interesting, I think, because they really change people's threat models very quickly, because it adds that aspect that's most of the time just reserved for science fiction and bad TV shows.
Now, I know we're not supposed to hang on to a topic for too long, but I'm curious, honestly, if someone can't patch this, what realistic mitigations do they have?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard if they, and if you look at the operating systems that are affected, it's all of Windows 10, all of Windows 11, Server 2008, 2012, 2016, 2019, 2022. So that means it probably goes even back into like, I'd be a little bit surprised if this isn't in Windows 8.1, Windows 7, XP. Like, this probably runs the full gamut. And if you don't have extended service on those, like, you're in some real trouble there. So, your obvious mitigation is to wire in with Ethernet and disable the Wi-Fi driver, but that's not always feasible for people. Like some links, like your only option really is Wi-Fi, and so you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Better have
yeah,
login
you don't really
enabled.
have a good option there.
All you can really do is monitor for that activity, right? I mean,
Right. And again, are we talking about a corporate system or a personal system? But like this is a reason of like, especially if you live in a population dense area, or God forbid you live around college students, might be time to upgrade that old gaming system that's still or testing toy system sitting in the corner that's still limping along on some old OS that doesn't get patches because or finally run the Cat 5 over there, even if it's ugly and you don't have a good way, because that thing is now a serious liability.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, you know, typically the Wi-Fi kind of attack service was always focused around like the cryptography of Wi-Fi, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think back to like 2017 or 2018 and the crack attacks, right, in WPA2, where you were able to like read encrypted messages if you were in range of somebody. You were able to do like that attack, that crack attack, and it moving from that to RCE, I think is just such a shock for a lot of people these days
Yeah.
because Wi-Fi is almost forgotten about because most people just take it for granted these days. Like it's safe, no one's going to do anything with it, and
Yeah, but it was always
that
about
kind of moved on.
coexisting on the LAN and taking advantage of coexisting on the LAN, not I'm just going to fire RCE straight at your system, easy peasy,
Right.
one fell swoop. Like that's
Yeah,
a whole new
exactly.
level of danger.
Yeah, so if you're bringing your laptop to DEF CON or Black Hat this year,
Just don't.
just don't. That would probably be the best, especially if it's a Windows device, But I'm really curious how this one plays out the rest of today and the rest of really this month, because I feel like this is it's going to be a news cycle, right? Like one of those news cycle volumes that kind of gets us all paranoid about Wi-Fi attacks now, and
Yeah.
all those vendors that were selling those Wi-Fi protection
Yup.
suites, they're going to be spinning back up, and
Yep, I was just thinking that vendors are going to start coming out of the woodwork. Like, hey, I have a solution for that.
Can't wait for the pew pew maps on this
like all the rogue access point detection stuff that like
Yep.
10 years ago everyone was really hell bent on because of those attacks, and it's it's all slowed down now, but all this stuff will reinvigorate all that.
Yeah.
Good times for sure with
Yeah,
this one.
just thinking like with an MSP hat, I don't know that I would really be. I mean, sure, my SSID, I've got everything password protected. I would just kind of move on from there. I wouldn't even think that this would be possible. And then lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah. And there's going to be a gold rush to figure this bug out too, and
Oh yeah,
there's going to be so many dazzling flavors of this on GitHub, and people are going to be putting modules in Metasploit. Like,
I can't wait.
yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, learn the learn what is this CVE 2024-30078. Learn it because we're gonna you're gonna hear this one for a while.
Yeah.
It'll probably be like a CTF or a hack the box eventually.
I mean, I would
goodness.
be disappointed if it's not.
Yeah. It'll capture the packet type attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, there's some other good ones too in the patch notes. So, the next few that really caught our eye are around the Windows kernel, and 2024 30064 and 30068, which are pretty standard, if you could call them standard, kernel elevation of privilege vulnerabilities coming out this Tuesday. So it is, more to worry about, Matt. I'm really curious your take on a couple of these.
Yeah. So I think they're pretty similar. I think they both take advantage of these app containers that Windows has. One of them, 30068, is basically you can gain system privileges. The other 30064 is you basically gain privileges of the running process that this exploits. So running inside the app container. And I don't think app containers are your typical like Docker containers, but they are a way to isolate workloads from the host in a sort of sandboxed, if you want to call that environment. And it just highlights, you know, that any container, whether it's an app container or a Docker container, anything you might want to think of as a container or not, um, you know, I mean, there was one the other week with that, whatever that confidential computing container stuff too, where, even though they are sandboxed, I think you still have to be careful of what you run in them, the security behind them, especially with 30064. Uh, Running that process is not system because if you can exploit that and that process for some reason is running a system, it can be system on the host. So just more, I guess, container security um, that has come out from these. So um, yeah, just
Yeah.
always follow best practices, uh, and yeah, don't run your containers as root or system.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the general consensus in the industry right now is like, at least from what I've seen, there's kind of like this really bad excuse that people have of like, it's running in the container. I don't need to worry about anything, right? And it's like, well, okay, maybe your network is isolated or your credentials are isolated or something, but like breakouts are probably more common than people imagine, and this really just shows that, right? Like you still should follow best practices, even if you're running things in an application container or your traditional Docker container or even like a LXC container in Linux, right? Like those namespaces can be breached, those things can be escaped, and it's very, very common to have
I mean,
these type of kind of breakouts.
yeah, and I think it's like there's a certain level of hubris involved to say I'm going to have a sandbox inside a container, inside an operating system, inside a hypervisor, and like rows of walls will protect me, and not wanting to pair that with other best practices like not running it as system, but it's just simply I think it's foolish, and I understand that some of those things are still around because of legacy setups that take a while to migrate. But if the steady stream of container escapes that we've seen, I mean, because I don't remember if we talked about this last month or the month before, but one of them had quite a few container escapes as well, and so like these are serious and they need to be treated seriously, and it's not just simply the matter of patching them in a timely manner. It's a matter of, you need to assume some level of escape, that escape is possible, and build mitigations around that as well, along with detection.
Yeah,
And
I'm always so paranoid too because a lot of this stuff, containers in general, obviously not the containers mentioned in this one, but just containers in general are always multi-tenant, right? Where you're sharing tenancy with another customer, and you might not necessarily have control over what that other person is doing or how they're using their kind of virtualized environment. So it that the kind of industry thought around, well, it's running in a container, I don't need to worry about the hosts, has always kind of irked me the wrong way because, like, yes, it's containerized, yes, it's virtualized, but there's still that underlying host that needs protection, that needs monitoring, that needs watch because these breakouts are common enough that it makes me extremely paranoid.
Yeah, and I think always check your defaults, right? Like things are not always secure by default. Like as an example, in your Docker file, like if you don't specify a user, that thing runs as root. So it's little gotchas like that, right? Where um, using something like semgrep um, to pre-commit, like scan your Docker file, make sure that you've got your defaults there. all set, because there's a lot of gotchas that if you don't specify something, it will have unintended consequences, which it's not the case all the time, but it is good to audit that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of unintended consequences, right?
Well, but before we go on though, like I think sorry, and now I'm pulling a Henry, but I think this discussion is a great segue to something that I was originally intending to bring up at the end of the podcast, but I think it's now is very timely that we saw I think back on June 2nd, someone posted the statistic that for the first time ever, there were over 5,000 CVEs published in a single month, right? And that was in April, right? So an average of 164 CVs per day and nearly double the 2023 publishing average. So, it's that is that milestone isn't I don't think that like tells us on its face whether or not things are getting more or less dangerous, right? 5,000 CVs could be we're making less secure software. It could also mean that we as an industry and a community are getting much better at detecting issues and creating CVEs and maybe and hopefully getting them solved in a timely manner. But the point is that the number of vulnerabilities is on its face high, and so this is a great example of an area where you need to have that broader mindset beyond just I'll patch the vulnerabilities as they come along. You need to have that sort of secondary methodology in place to prevent or restrict damage and also to detect when things have gone awry.
Yeah. And I'll probably get dragged for this, but I think partly in the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of it is based around the usage of open source, where we have developers that will kind of, just pull packages from really anywhere. And that it leads to a lot of this like vulnerability debt within products. And pinning packages obviously is the best thing to do, but I often find that those packages really never get updated, and they just consistently collect these vulnerabilities over the months and months and years. Right. And now you have 10, 20, 50 millions of vulnerabilities in your product, and you're how do I even start here? Right.
Yeah. And I think he's kind of going along with that proactive mindset is, trying to stop those CVEs in CI/CD pipeline, or even as me being a Kubernetes shill, is you can set up an admission controller, right, to scan your images, like the images within your containers within your pods. And if any like critical CVEs come up, whether they're recent or old, it won't allow those pods to be scheduled in your cluster. So as an example of things you can proactively do in deployment and continuous integration is like put those checks in place so that you stop those before they actually enter your environment.
All right, let's make Henry really happy and talk about the big pile of phishing fuel that we see this month. Henry, you want to start us off on this one?
I don't even know where to begin. Let's see.
I mean, 11 is a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna count them. Yeah, look, I was going through everything, and I think I counted 11 CVEs that somehow like there's some aspect of like phishing, or like I guess tricking a user into executing something or opening something. And I think this Patch Tuesday is really kind of eye opening about why you should be concerned about the real risk of phishing in your organization. And
Right.
I mean, these vulnerabilities are even more critical with Microsoft's recall.
Yes.
Screenshots of everything you've looked at, plain text database of everything a user's done. That whole concept of, hey, my machine is safe because it's only just a window to the cloud, like the stuff we have living in the cloud. Everything's fine. Well, with recall, all that kind of goes right out the window.
Yeah, and I was planning on dragging recall pretty good, and I was very happy to see that on, I believe it was Friday, Microsoft released updated guidance saying, hey, it's now going to be opt-in. You're going to need to use Microsoft Hello to enable it. You're going to need to use Microsoft Hello to access it, and when Hello has not been used to access it, it will be encrypted at rest. Like, those are very positive changes from what had originally been proposed. But there's, as with all things in security, the devil is in the details. And so, you know how are they going to do a hello prompt per query? That seems unlikely to me, right? So, okay, it unlocks. How long does it unlock for? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? And if I have remote code execution on a system, that just makes it like it the chance that that's unlocked, which has now become a chance, not a certainty, but still the chance that that's unlocked really reduces the amount of dwell time I need on an individual system to capture the information that I'm looking for. And so, like, that's what makes it very, very dangerous, because they didn't put in anything about oh, we're going to recognize passwords. And sometimes users have very complex bank passwords, and they turn on the visibility so they can spell check it before they hit enter, right? Because not everyone's using a password manager. Like, sensitive things are not always masked, and having a database that has images and also text representation of those images that's easily searchable means that I can dwell for a very minor amount of time on that system and really get a lot of bang for my buck, rather than having to watch and wait for you to then go and access those things. I've got this time machine that I can go into and just have a run through that.
Shout out to John Hammond. I watched his video
Yeah.
yesterday or Saturday night. I think that was a really good walkthrough of like how dangerous this actually was. He went and looked at all the screenshots and went through that SQL database, and it's a lot of stuff that's just sitting there kind of right in the open.
Yeah.
And it was more it felt more exploratory for him, but I think the way he presented it was really easy to digest. And I mean, it's probably easy to digest in general, but his walkthrough was was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you
John
have time,
Hammond and Kevin Beaumont have really been doing a fantastic job of laying out the danger here. And it's an interesting capability. I think it has some utility, but this is, we're very much, it very much feels like a Jurassic Park thing
yep.
of we got a little too focused of if we could and didn't think about if we should.
Yeah, and I think there was that tool Total Recall that came out, I don't know, a day after or something, that
Yep.
nicely packaged all the stuff up for you and then ready for exfil. So
Yeah. And
All on it.
yeah, and
yeah.
I always have mixed feelings on those things. Like, I see that some of that stuff, and I want to be like, oh, like, that's so dangerous, because now the knowledge level needed to take advantage of this just dropped through the floor. But on the flip side, without people like Kevin and John raising awareness, and without somebody creating Total Recall, when Microsoft had changed their policy, because there is just so much pressure in the industry right now to like build in AI, build in more AI at any cost, and it feels like many vendors out there are just throwing anything they can at the wall to see what sticks with consumers and what they like and what they want to use. That there's a lot of an elevated danger over normal product cycles.
Yeah. I saw some argument on like LinkedIn last week about something similar too, where people were arguing that like you don't even have to care about vulnerabilities unless it has a Metasploit module, right?
Right. Because
It
that's
just
the
reminded me of
mentality
that,
that some people have, and so the people who create modules for Metasploit aren't entirely wrong when they say that their work helps get attention on bugs, and helps get issues resolved and fixed, because otherwise people won't move on them. Either
Yeah,
vendors
Yeah,
won't move to create a patch, or the customers won't move to patch it.
yeah, absolutely.
Prove
And
that impact.
another one that that popped in my mind was, 2024-30072, which is remote code execution when you're parsing Microsoft trace files, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious, Henry, your thoughts here on this one.
Yeah, again, I'm just kind of putting on like my MSP hat, coming from the MSP space or maybe even the support space, you might need to view these files as part of your troubleshooting. And I
Yep.
could definitely see this as an attack vector like, "Hey, support, I really need help. Like, can you help me figure out this problem? And here's this trace file. Can you open it up and just see if there's anything pops out at you?" And next thing you know, they have what is it, RCE on your system. So,
Yep.
this is one that is definitely caught my eye just from like an IT perspective.
Yeah, because threat actors would never ever pretend to be IT
Never.
Saying
support.
people lie on the internet.
That's hurtful, Tom. How could you?
How dare you say that?
And
Yeah,
those,
but
IT employees typically have high privileges too. So it's if you're
absolutely.
getting RC on their system, you probably are going to make out pretty good.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Henry on this one. This is one of those, like, I know the scattered spiders of the world are targeting kind of the Okta um, environment, but I feel like this is something where it's kind of right in that wheelhouse. Like, look at my trace file, and
Yeah.
you just double click it, and that's it.
Yep.
I could even
Easy.
see someone posting it on like a public like Stack Overflow or something. Like, hey, I'm having
That's true.
like,
That's true.
Yeah.
like I can't figure this
Whoa.
out, guy. Help me.
That's a good
Whoa.
one.
Yeah.
That's a spicy one.
Yeah, that's good. No, absolutely. That kind of information sharing is really common. We kind of blindly trust strangers on the internet,
Right.
probably more often than not. And, let me just look at this random trace file. I'm always paranoid about PDFs nowadays too. After some of that, after all those overflows in Apple, like every time I see a PDF, I'm like, do I really have to open this thing? Right? Because it just feels like another one of those things, like the Wi-Fi module thing, where it's just
Right.
like you've just been blindly trusting the systems for so long, and now, like, I have these second thoughts around those things. It's just, yeah, real paranoid. Anything else we want to chat about today?
I think that's it.
I'm pretty tired after this.
Yeah, we've been going for a while. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate your continued support. Like I said, we're up over, I think, 18,000 subscribers now on YouTube. So if you enjoyed listening to us ramble today, we would love if you would like and subscribe and, check out all the other. I had to say
You
it.
said it.
He said it.
I said it.
You see that little
I'm
bell
practic-
icon?
I'm
Hit that
practicing
thing,
for
too.
my
I'm waiting for my middle
streaming
schooler to just
career.
appear at my office door if you heard the magic words.
And, if you're looking for certification, Automox just released our level 3 pro cert. So check out the Automox University if you have time. It is well worth it. We have free trials, so you can go ahead and get yourself signed up and go about, testing out our wonderful platform we have here. But thank you all for kind of listening, and I hope everyone has a great June and a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.